Okay, now I'm zooming in on it, zooming out rather, and now I'm coming down to this area. And
Yeah, touch the button bush as you go. The buttons.
I need to be in close on that so we can see it.
Well, you can't do it in a continuous movement, then they can bring it in later.
And what do you call them?
Button bush.
And just the distinctiveness of those, the leaf.
It grows in marshy areas. It's a member of the Rubiaceae, the coffee family. It has thousands of relatives, mostly in the tropics.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the more northern members of the coffee family, the Rubiaceae.
All right, John, you're on camera.
All right. Good morning. I'm John Barrett. I'm in West Roxbury in the Stony Brook Reservation near a small artificial pond along the paved East Boundary Road bicycle path where my mother, Sophie Ruth Moransky, spent many happy hours in 1986. She was born October 4th, 1901 in Hartford, Connecticut, the sixth of 8 children in an immigrant family. She was handicapped in her late years, so it was a great pleasure to be able to take her in her wheelchair along this paved bicycle path. She attended Mount Holyoke College, where she majored in economics and sociology. She knew Harry Hopkins, President Roosevelt's advisor, in social work. She developed statistical reporting methods for child guidance clinics for the Commonwealth Fund in the 1920s. And then she was working as director of personnel research at Macy's stores in New York when she met my father and fell in love and went to China as a Navy wife. Hey, you're not in on this. Don't cut in.
Just remember now, you don't have to rush in talking.
Right.
You've got the time. You're the producer.
All right. You want to review and see if that's all right so far?
Well,
go ahead.
I can cut it up and chop it up, but I think I would go back to where let's see, where the heck were you talking before that thing came in? I think it was before, right after she was born in Connecticut. Do that again. Wait a minute, though. Okay, John, again.
She was born in Hartford, Connecticut, October 4, 1901, the sixth of 8 children of immigrant parents. She attended Mount Holyoke College, where she graduated in 1923 in economics and sociology and did graduate work in statistics. She wrote a master's thesis on the young offender and the criminal law in Massachusetts. She got into statistical reporting techniques that she developed for the Commonwealth Fund for child guidance clinics, and then she was director of personnel research at Macy's stores. She met President Roosevelt's future advisor Harry Hopkins in her social work in New York. But she married a naval officer, my father, in June 21, 1929, at City Hall in New York, just before he left for 3 years in China and the Philippines.
Thanks.
My mother lived 14 months at the Court Hotel in Tin Sin, and she sent the first report to the Navy of the Japanese capture of Mukden, China, September 19, 1931. 2 fur buyers had to bribe Japanese officers to let them on the train from Manchuria to Tin Sin. And my mother sent the report to the ship. My father's ship, the Tulsa, was kept east of Tin Sin for intelligence purposes, and that was probably the first report of the incident that led to the Japanese overrunning of Manchuria and the start of World War II in Asia.
One question, John. You mentioned that she sent the report, and then you talk about the 2 merchants. Did she get the story from the merchants, or
yes,
did she transfer it to...
Yes.
Go back over that part again.
Well, I'll go repeat, but keep what I have, but I'll add on it.
Yeah.
These two fur buyers arrived in Tin Sin, and my mother recognized them. They had got furs for a coat that she still has, and they told her story, and she sent it to Commander Paul Rice of the Tulsa, and he lived to be 95, and his wife is now 102, and her daughter Nathalie Hawley and her husband are in St. Helena, California, where I saw them in 1995. They were my mother's best friends when she was first married. My folks traveled around the world. They toured the pyramids and the Shepherd's Hotel in Egypt. They visited Naples, Rome, Florence, and Venice in the winter of 1932. We were in Hawaii during World War II. My father was the overseas transportation officer evacuating Navy families. My mother wrote a 150,000-word memoir, A Red-Headed Stepchild, about my father's life. His family were from South Boston, and his mother died when he was less than a year old. His stepmother was Elaine, whose nephew was one of the first Americans to play pro hockey, Miles Lane. If you can see this picture, these were my father's half-brother and half-sisters, Bill, Molly, and Kate Barrett of 640 East 7th Street, South Boston. Bill Barrett became secretary of the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, and his son and 4 grandchildren are in Rumson, New Jersey at present. After spending the war years in Hawaii, we toured the Western National Parks the summer of 1947. My father was a wonderful photographer. Many of his best photos have been stolen, but this was a photo my father took at Crater Lake National Park in Oregon, in Washington. If you can see
Hold it
this,
up again.
all right, this is Crater Lake National Park. There's a little lava island in the picture known as Phantom Ship. That was in June of 1947. We arrived at Crater Lake in a snowstorm, June 27, 1947. Then in July, we were at Mount Rainier in Washington. We were there for 2 days, but we only had about an hour and a half when it was really clear, and my father took some Kodachrome photos of Mount Rainier. Here is one now. We toured Glacier National Park, where my folks liked the Iceberg Lake, and we toured Yosemite, Yellowstone, Grand Teton, the Monterey Peninsula. We came back by way of Niagara Falls, and we settled in West Roxbury in 1947. After years as a Navy wife, it meant a great deal to my mother to have a home of her own in West Roxbury, and she lived here 39 years. She wrote her memoir principally in 1970 and 71. She was active in the West Roxbury Historical Society, the Massachusetts State Poetry Society. She was very much interested in the Arnold Arboretum. She helped get Brook Farm preserved, and she attended reunions at Mount Holyoke College, where a group of about 10 of her classmates and friends had some serious discussions of education and career opportunities for women. She was active on nuclear arms control issues in 1982 and 1983, and helped organize a cruise to keep cruise missiles out of Boston Harbor in 1983. And in the last year of her life, this Stony Brook area meant a great deal to her. We've learned that the painter John Enneking, who lived in Hyde Park, was very active in preserving this Stony Brook area. I can point out purple loosestrife. I can point out a silver birch.
No.
I can point
Stop,
out
John.
maple. Yes. Oh.
The bird, the plane. Unfortunately, we're on that runway, what was it, runway 37 or something?
Oh.
And that's why we're being interfered with. They're supposed to go out to the ocean.
Yeah.
When you have an ocean near you, you're supposed to fly that way. But instead, they're trying to conserve fuel, supposedly, cut costs. But you never see the costs go down, do you?
Why don't they move that? Why can't they build an airport out at sea?
Well, they're right on the ocean. They could easily turn and fly that way until they get high enough. But no, they come right over here and interfere with our stuff.
And show different plants.
Okay,
Like willows,
go ahead.
birches.
What are you going to do now?
All right, well,
Stay there and point.
all right. Well, I'm going to point to. Well, there's a maple up there. See, there's a red maple. See, to the right of the oak. I want you to see where these are, and then we can kind of.
All right.
Henry Thoreau was one of the first people to study the seasonal changes in the New England plant flora. Today is the 20th of July. A very troublesome weed that is very beautiful to look at is the purple loosestrife, introduced from Europe or Asia. It aggressively crossbreeds, and it has 3 different floral morphs with different stamen and pistil lengths, which require outcrossing. So it is of considerable interest to geneticists, but they say it is crowding out many rare native swamp plant species, and it does not provide the food for birds that those other species formerly provided. We're going to give you some close-ups of different species. There are quite a few things in this local area. There are sedges. A sedge is not a grass, although it can easily be confused for one. There is one type of sedge that does very well in trampled areas, such as along this path. We can also see some fine examples of polytrichum, which is one of the tallest mosses. We've been looking at white oaks. There are grape leaves.
Point out the sedge and the...
Sedges are growing here along the path, and many places they grow where they are trampled. The sedges are abundant. There are grape leaves. This vine is a grape leaf. Of course, many of these plants are introduced. There is polytrichum moss here. We'll get a close-up of it in a minute. The bumblebees are very happy here. There is the small silver birch. There are many birch species, and here the Canadian paperbark birch is a great tree with a blunt leaf, but the little New England silver birch that Robert Frost wrote about has a long, narrow leaf. Right here is a specimen of a New England silver birch. There is red maple here. There's under this white oak, this fine white oak, underneath it.
John, I can't hear you from there.
Here is red maple. These button bushes belong to the coffee family. The leaves and stems are arranged in threes around the main stem. And most of it, there are thousands of related species in the tropics. The Rubiaceae, the coffee family, are one of the largest families of flowering plants. Down the road, there is a parasite called dodder, which intrigued my mother when she was here in 1986. There are pussy willows here. If you were here in April, this pussy willow would attract your attention in April. I'm going to ask Bob to move his camera and get a shot of the pond and the polytrichum moss, and then if he has time, we might go down the trail a little further. Cut.
Okay, let me get that pussy willow first.
Come see this pussy willow in April. There's something to see here in every season of the year, and it's a good place to watch birds. Did you get that bird, Bob?
Yeah.
Over 61 years, Francis Henry Allen observed 119 species of birds at nearby Brook Farm, about a mile from here. The meadow birds are even more scarce of habitat these days than the forest birds. Brook Farm is an important site for meadowlarks and other meadow birds.
Okay, cut.
Okay. Why don't we get a shot of this?
Okay.
Go. Polytrichum is one of the easiest mosses to recognize. There's a good patch of it here, It grows. It has an advanced vascular system. It has what are called xylem and phlegm, woody tissues that are more associated with the higher plants. The related Dawsonia can grow 2 feet high in the area from Mindanao in the Philippines through Borneo and New Guinea down toward Australia.